Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there. Welcome to the program. Hearing my own voice, I sound a little deflated. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the fact that it's freezing and cold and rainy and we've had enough. No, that's not it. World. It's a fact that I didn't sleep last night. At any rate, hello and welcome to the program. It's April 18, 2022. I guess this is why I'm in this state. Yeah, Pittsburgh was all over the national news this weekend. Wonderful. Not for anything we wanted to be, but just for being the most recent location. Oh, that's tough to do because it's every 10 minutes you get displaced by another place. The location of it's called mass shooting. This one involving a lot of young people who dead, many injured. And it's not that I have anything new to say. Well, I guess I do. I have one fact that if you're thinking it didn't used to be this way, it's true. It didn't. It has gotten worse. For most of my life, or in fact, all of my life, up until 5 years ago, the leading cause of death among Americans aged 1 to 24, car accidents. Well, you know that that's not true anymore, but it didn't get switched until 2017 when guns took over. Guns are killing our children. And, you know, it puts the lie to the gun nuts suggestion that the more of us who are armed, the safer we will be. I mean, never was there a more stupid statement made. Guns have done nothing but proliferate and proliferate. We are standing alone in the world with our love of guns, our constitutionally mandated fetish. What do we got to show for it? People on the right will say freedom. No, we got bodies. Man, we got bloody body bags. Our children. A lot of innocent people. Humans are not known, especially young ones, for having, good control of their judgment, their emotional state. But in a country like ours, where they can get their hands on lethal. I'm back on. Wonderful. All right, guys. I am on. Can I just say something? And, forgive me. Fuck! Okay, there. I feel better. Thank you. I'm sorry if I screamed in your ear. Am I on? Oh, Jesus. The computer back at City Paper crashed. I know. Thank you. I know I'm on. I'm on. Big deal. I'm on for who the hell knows how long. I'm sorry. I didn't need this today. I'm sort of in a mood. So I think maybe when last you heard me, I was talking about how, we're an exceptional nation heading down the wrong path. I think you might have heard me say that by all indications, the comatose voters of this country are about to put Republicans, the fascist white nationalist party, back in power. I guess a reward for their aiding and abetting an insurrection against the duly elected government of the United States. I don't know if you heard that or not, but I'm repeating it in case I'm still on. And then I said, I can't deal with this. So let's deal with something that we can actually maybe do something. And we can with the election too, by the way. We've got to work our asses off about that. But again, I don't want to talk about it right now. I want to talk about something that's every bit as important, but doesn't seem so. And this has to do with the pressures being put on our ecosystem. This has to do with climate change in part, but not really. The pressure that I want to talk about is coming from us. It used to be the answer to almost any question is, why is that like that? Well, there's a few answers always. It's money or lawyers, or increasingly the answer to why are things all screwed up. It's us. It's us. It's humans. And so, I'm sure you've heard that a catastrophic declines. And I suspect you realize that if honeybees are facing catastrophic declines, then that will have an impact on humans as well, since we rely in large part on honeybees for pollination. Why are they in such dire straits? Well, climate change is part, but climate change back to us too. Habitat loss, that comes back to us. Pesticide use definitely comes back to us. And urbanization, and here we are back to us. So it's not a mystery. But I read recently, and maybe you did, I saw a piece and it just gladdened my heart, because it was something that is starting to happen in places, and in fact seems to have really taken hold in my home state of Wisconsin. And that is something as simple as not mowing your lawn in the month of May. Yep. Now imagine that. What happens if you were not to mow your lawn for the month of May? Well, my God! I'll tell you what'll happen. Weeds will grow. It'll be unkempt. I'll be violating local ordinances. My neighbors will think I'm dead. I'll have lost everything. My beautiful lawn. How can I do that? But guess what? All over Wisconsin are doing it. And they're doing it to help the bees. Imagine 1 month. 1st of June, you can mow away. But give those bees 1 month. You know what happens in that month is your lawn becomes filled, unless you got it pesticided to death, with dandelions and violets and white clover. And the bees love it. They provide all those plants. Grass doesn't give a bee a thing. Nothing. But an unmown lawn for 1 month provides honeybees with food. And this is food for the bees emerging from hibernation. The city of Appleton, Wisconsin, which is just a half hour away from Green Bay, they started this 2 years ago. And the city council there agreed that this was a good idea. And it became the first city in the United States to adopt what they call no mow May. Oh, those silly people. Let me tell you, Appleton is not known as Appleton is where Senator Joe McCarthy came from, okay? But it is also home to Lawrence University, which is a marvelous private liberal arts college. 1 year later, over a dozen other communities in Wisconsin adopted no mow May. It has since spread. It's spreading really quickly to Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, Montana. People are listening. Would you? If lawns are let go essentially fallow for 1 month, May, and allowed to do naturally what they want to do, you will benefit the bees and you will benefit yourselves. Now, one woman in a little city in Wisconsin called Prairie du Chien, she was participating in No Mow May, even though the city that she was in had not suggested it, but she heard about it and thought, this is wonderful. 2 weeks into it, she's awakened by loud knocking on her door, and she comes to the front door and finds some cops. Someone had called the police and said, you better go check on this address because her lawn is normally, kept up and it's not. And I think you better go check and see if she's alive. So the cops came around to see if she were dead or alive. And obviously they discovered her very much alive, and she told them about No Mow May. And they told her, well, okay, but, I don't think your neighbors are particularly happy about it. And in fact, a week later, one of her neighbors, when she was not home, mowed her lawn. So offended was the neighbor by this unkempt. And that's why I have very little hope that most people, you, would dare to do this. But it's taking hold. Appleton, the city council just voted to make no mow May permanent. And more municipalities in Wisconsin are following. And the efforts of just letting it go for a month are already paying off. Because people are cataloging. The bees are proliferating. It helps. What helps more is to stop the pesticide. You ask scientists who study bees, they'll say, urban and suburban environments are huge for bees, and their impact on bees is huge. And ever since we fell in love with green carpeted grass, we've been killing bees. Because you can't, in order to keep those beautiful lawns, you have to have pesticides. But I don't understand why more of us don't see how important this is and rethink what we're doing. And when you plant things, think of, will the bees love this? Will this help them? Will it allow them to nest? To stop using these poisons that we use? I'm just saying. No mow May. I see all the yards around me, and I can't imagine people doing it. I can't. And again, we are a selfish people. We're a silly people, I think. And a whole bunch of you sent me a piece that I'd seen already. It was in the New York Times, and it's about leaf blowers. Another case in point. And I'm glad to see that is something that is starting to I noted on the Nextdoor app that somebody put out how horrific these leaf blowers have become in terms of the damage to the quiet enjoyment of our outdoors, but also because of the extraordinary amount of pollution they spew. And there are better alternatives. So I love seeing that on Nextdoor, you're seeing people say, hey guys, the only way this is going to get fixed is if you have somebody who comes and blows, constantly on your lawn, you hire somebody to do that. Will you please tell them that they better change over to an electric blower? They got to get rid of the gas blowers, or you're not going to employ them. You're going to find somebody who does use electric. So that's the way the change comes. I mean, cities have banned them outright. Washington, D.C. has. California is banning them. Not soon enough, not till 2024. They do nothing that has to be done because there are other ways of doing it. And they are known as probably the biggest polluters. For their size, you can't find anything as bad. What's always pissed me off about them is the noise. Then I found out about the pollution. I knew it was noise pollution, but wow, the air pollution is amazing. Just switching to an electric blower will help. And I would argue that people did just fine before blowers even existed, because there's a tool which I still use, and it's called a rake. Might I suggest it? It was pointed out in this article that the writer said, she sees her neighbor's electric car parked in the driveway while somebody is using a gas-powered leaf blower on the adjacent lawn that they own. I mean, again, we make no sense. And we do not care for our environment. I remember when I first learned that animals don't foul their own nest. I don't know where I heard that. Birds don't foul their own nest, whatever. Because it was nest. But I have seen that generally that is true. But not this animal, not the human animal. Did you see that? Like there's pictures now of the rover on Mars bumping into garbage, the junk. We're already polluting. We're already polluting the solar system, as we know. We're something. I don't much like us. I just wanted to say, I really don't. Let's see. I got a lot of stuff here. I'm not sure where to go. I want to note the passing of a good guy that I worked with a long time ago, Stu Emery. You might remember him. He worked for a long time as a TV reporter on WTAE, and then a lot of folks at TAE ended up at KDKA for a bit. Stu was there at TAE when I got there. This is in '80. And he was one of those old school, solid reporters who I don't think would make it in today's television news. Maybe he would. I don't know. Because old school is, I don't know. I don't think it makes it anymore. But Stu was one of those, just the facts, no kind of, no fall-de-roll, no unnecessary drama. That's what would trip him up today. And just a good man. So came into your home over 30 years on your television screens. I mean, he covered it all, from 3 Mile Island to God knows what, all of it. Hard news reporter. And a good man. And I wanted to note is passing. Stu Emery. Oh, boy. Barbara sent this. Not that we don't know, but I'll remind you, because this is the party that Americans apparently are going to vote back into power. Insulin was discovered over 100 years ago and patent gifted for $1. So everybody knew this was a wonder drug needed by so many, and there was no reason to get greedy about it. So the people who initially had the patent says, you know, it should be free or capped at most. What we decided now is $35 a month is more than enough, little more than $1 a day. And that went up for a vote. You probably know, in the House of Representatives. And 193 Republicans voted against capping the price of insulin, which right now costs over $1,000 a month. So tell me, if you're a poor person, or even if you're not technically poor, but you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you've got diabetes, maybe 2 or 3 people in your family have it, and you don't have the kind of insurance that's going to pick up the bill, you tell me. I mean, what do Republicans want people to do? Just die? Because it's more important than some fat cat makes more money? And this is the party Americans are going to put back in power. It's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Let me tell you about a guy, because this made me feel good. I want to talk about a guy who fought back. I just got something, you know, from a doctor I have to go see in a week, and it said, you know, you could, check in online before you come so that we can. Have you ever tried to do that? Check in online? Dear God, it's like took a half hour. They want to know everything that they supposedly already know. I mean, if it's within the system that I've typed this crap into 500,000 times, what medicines I take, my history, how many surgeries I've had, my genetic history, when my parents, my grandparents, you know, all this stuff, which I swear to God, I have told them 1,000,000 times, and they still want me to tell them again. What kind of a sadistic, stupid, inefficient system is that? So you know what? I'm not going to check in online. F them. Anyway, there's a doctor. Well, he's retired now. There's a doctor. He spent all his life helping people. And this guy lives in Spain. His name is Carlos San Juan de Lorden. And damn if this guy didn't do something wonderful. He got annoyed at not the hospital he had to deal with, because God knows he has to deal with the hospital because he has Parkinson's disease, which is why he retired. He's 78 years old. No, he got fed up with the bank that he had used all his life. He says he deposited the first paycheck he ever got in that bank and stayed with that bank his entire life. And the bank said to him, I mean, not personally said to him, sent him something, an email probably, telling him that its retail hours have been drastically reduced and that the only way of reaching anyone to talk to them about anything was that you had to make an appointment and you had to use an app. He downloaded the app. He tried to make an appointment. It was all too much, too complicated. And he said, here's a bank I have kept my money in for over half a century. And he said, and now I literally cannot talk to a human being there. So he went online. He ain't a Luddite. He went online and he started a petition called I'm Old, Not an Idiot. And in his petition, he argued that banks and other institutions like hospitals should remember that they serve their customers. And they should remember that some of their customers are older, are more vulnerable members. In 2 months, his petition got over 600,000 signatures. Local media, then national media got onto it. Then the banks were asked to explain themselves. And then even the government of Spain responded. So this retired doctor caused some good trouble. Spain has a very old population. People over 65 account for 1/5 of the population of Spain. And all this good doctor wanted people to think about is that older people should not pay the price for an online transition that has allowed banks and hospitals and all the other institutions to make significant amounts of money because they've cut their staffs, those humans that you can no longer find to talk to. So, as I said, he was forced into early retirement because he got Parkinson's and his hands shook too much for him to do his work. But I bet he was a wonderful doctor because he said, you know, for me, medicine is a human treatment, which requires looking a patient in the eyes, talking to them, perhaps consoling them. But it's that human touch. It's what we were talking about last week with Teresa Brown, the nurse, about how all of that has been taken out of our health care system. It doesn't care a whit about you, not a whit, only as much as you represent money or whatever processes and procedures they can bill on your behalf. And so this guy mobilized an entire country to deal with the fact that public institutions and private corporations are now forcing all of us to communicate online, forcing us to do work that people used to do. And he pointed out that the pandemic has been a perfect excuse for banks and others to force us to stay away and act like robots, while also making us do the work. Little acts like refusing to sign on. I am not typing this crap into a computer again. I am not. God, it's come to that, like acts of disobedience. Taking on your doctor, taking on your bank. And I forget where I was, but I was involved in something very recently. Maybe it'll come to me, where I was sitting there and trying to put some stuff in, and somebody else was doing the same. And I looked at them and I said, remember how we were promised? Oh, I know, it was the airport. Remember how we were promised that these amazing machines, these tools, would make our lives easier, less stressful? What a bill of goods. Wow. I haven't watched this, but I'm going to. I think I want to see it. It's on Netflix now. It's a Japanese show that's run in Japan for decades. But I guess Netflix has been streaming it since late March. And it's a show called Old Enough. It's a reality show. And I'm telling you, this has been going on in Japan forever. But on this show, Japanese parents send children as young as 2 out of the house to run an errand. And the kid is followed by film crews, and obviously who would not let any harm befall the child. But it shows, I think it'd be a riot. It shows, a 2, a 3, a 4-year-old going off to do something, take the laundry to the cleaners or pick something up at a store for their mother for a recipe she's making. And this show has been extremely popular in Japan for a long, long time. But the reason is because in Japan, their culture believes in teaching very young children independence. Now, this is the exact opposite of our current parenting culture. I mean, stop and think of all the people I've heard stories, and I can't believe it, that, like 20-somethings show up at a job interview with their mother. We have created generations of kids that can't get through a day without calling their mothers 2, 3, 4 times, can't make a decision on their own without checking it out. We're the exact opposite. And I've been decrying this now forever because it's so clearly wrong-headed. It so clearly creates adults that have no self-confidence, no resilience, no problem-solving skills, no skills in navigating through their own agency, this complex world. So I love the idea of this show. And what's funny about it, I got to watch it, is that they say that as the kid goes off on his or her errand, there's play-by-play. So there's a narrator describing the child's progress in breathless tones, like you're watching, an athletic event. I just think this sounds like a riot. And apparently the kids always screw up. But that's how you learn. How you learn. The article I read says that, they're following this one 3-year-old who the whole way is talking to herself. She's having this wonderful conversation with herself, and she gets so involved in this conversation that she forgets what it was she was asked to do. I love this. It says here that even a member of the royal family, Princess Akko, would walk alone to school, to elementary school. Can you imagine? So did my kid, by the way. I live, let's see, I'll count them. 1, 2, 3 blocks from his grade school. I didn't walk him to school. You know what? It didn't even occur to me to walk him to school, because I had always walked to school. And that's why I go berserk when I see all these parents today walking their kids to the bus stop and then staying there till the bus picks them up, and then going back and standing there until the bus drops them back off and walks them home. And these kids are a lot older than my kid was when he walked off. What do you think we're doing to these children? We think we're protecting them. We're making them weak, pampered, beholden, stupid, unready for the world. They point out that in Japanese culture, this value of raising an independent child has maybe the cultures are so different that, according to a professor who's quoted, says it means that kind of independence means adapting yourself to the group. See, that's not American right there. Adapting yourself to the group while managing daily tasks. Anyway, so it's called Old Enough if you want to check it out. Yeah. No, our current parenting model just makes me puke. I mean, it really makes me puke. I didn't know about it until I adopted my son. And I was old enough to be the mother of most of his friends' mothers. So I was more than I was easily a generation removed. And whatever the hell had happened in the interim, it just blew my mind. Parents being subjected to having to oversee homework. What? My parents didn't even ask if I had it, nor did they ask if I'd done it. I remember a friend, old school, when my son was struggling in grade school, and I was saying, I see other parents doing all this. She said, "You keep doing what you're doing. Don't do it for him. Don't ever do it for him. How's he supposed to learn?" But I'm sure all of you know parents that are constantly doing it for them and are still doing it for them when they're in their 20s. How the hell are they ever supposed to learn? Oh, I don't know. I have one more thing. It's heavy. But I want to get it in here. This is so some of you can, most of you, I assume, are not Jews. By the way, I hope you had a happy Easter. Jews are still into Passover. Ramadan's still going on. And I just want to say that because Jews are such a minority, that I can say with assurance that most of you are not Jewish. So I want to tell you something that I wasn't going to tell you because I thought it would sound not right. But thank God, a guy named Jeffrey Gettleman, writing for the New York Times, wrote a piece, I believe this weekend or maybe Friday. And he's a reporter who's over there in Poland now on the border between Poland and Ukraine. And that which I wasn't going to tell you, he writes about. It's been very odd for Jews to find ourselves rooting, admiring the Ukrainians. That's what I didn't want to say because I am such an admirer. But I didn't tell you about the cognitive dissonance that this horrific war that they are so bravely fighting caused in me and in so many other Jews. Because the place names that we're seeing are the places that our grandparents came from. And our grandparents came from those places because they ran for their lives from them. And those that didn't run, well, dead. This whole area, Poland, Ukraine, that we're now seeing, are the killing fields of my people. So finally, this guy, Jeffrey Gettleman, actually talked about it. He talked about being at a train station in Poland and watching these tired, frightened Ukrainian refugees come off, these women and children, and the Poles greeting them so warmly and taking them in. and how wonderful it was. But see, his historical memory is that at that very train station, his relatives, women and children, were put onto trains and sent to extermination camps. Okay. So I have to tell you, there is so much. And I want to thank him for writing what he did. I want to share just a little of it with you because it helped me. He's sitting with a Polish apple farmer, and he's telling us this guy is one of the most generous men I've ever met. He took in 8 Ukrainian refugees, complete strangers, gave them a place to stay, cooked their meals, brought them armloads of fresh bread every morning, and is even trying to find them jobs. And then the reporter starts talking to him and talked about World War II. And here's what the farmer said. The real disaster started when the Russians invaded. The Russians were worse than the Germans. The Germans did not hurt ordinary people. Now, the reporter is a Jew, and he hears that the Germans did not hurt ordinary people. They murdered over 1 million Polish Jews. Were those Poles not ordinary people? Here is this man who he's thinking is the most generous man he ever met, and he's saying something that's insane. But then the reporter says this, but then I realized that he and I were actually engaging in a similar type of thinking. He couldn't stop obsessing about Russia, which occupied Poland during World War II and then controlled it for decades after, and is now dropping bombs just a few miles from the border. And I, the reporter, couldn't stop thinking about the Holocaust. Neither of us had lived through that history ourselves, but the trauma of it was handed down to us from our families, and both of us were trapped in the past. And he says that has been the hardest aspect of covering this war, how to integrate the past with the present. He says, when I was growing up, no, this is somebody else he quotes, when I was growing up, another Jew, the refrain was the Germans were bad, oof, the Poles were worse, and the Ukrainians were the worst. Now look, whoever thought we'd be rooting for the Ukrainians, sending them money, opening our doors. And the same guy says you can't spend your life looking at the past. Times change. Everything changes. And just the end paragraph of this, because it helped me, because I've really been, my head's been spinning. We shouldn't forget what happened. And for some of us, even distantly connected to the events of the past, we simply cannot forget. But the Ukraine of today and the Poland of today are not the Ukraine and Poland of the Holocaust. And perhaps that's one of the greatest lessons of this awful, awful war. Countries are living things that grow and change. They are shaped by their past, but not chained to it. just like us. I wanted to share that. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.